being clear what is within the definition of a public place, that is important for police to be able to enforce this appropriately. And if it is not clear what is being included in this definition of public place, then that will need to be specified in operational instructions which provide police with the information and training to be able to go and implement this legislation. So I want to hear from the Minister specifically what instructions will be provided to police in order to know that they will have all of the information available to enforce this clearly. Now, I appreciate that police discretion will come into this. There will be some really difficult calls to be made in different kinds of circumstances that come up through the course of this law being enforced. But I would like to know from the Minister what has he done alongside of the Minister of Police in consultation with police officers that can give us confidence that they have turned their minds to the fact that this will create some incredibly difficult situations for frontline officers to be able to make their decisions and exercise their discretion as to when to prosecute and when not to prosecute. Because if it's unclear to the police officers, then it will be even less clear to the communities in which this law will impact upon. And it does seem to me, Madam Chair, that this is policy and legislation being made off the hoof and not being given the careful consideration that is required in terms of how it is practically going to be enforced in line with police discretion. So I would like to hear from the Minister, has there been any operational instructions already drafted for police? What are those operational instructions that have been drafted for police? And what consideration has he given, or the Minister of Police have given, to the type of training and information required for frontline officers in order for this latest amendment to be able to be enforced clearly in New Zealand for those communities it directly impacts upon?
And it's a shame that she did not have her dance moves out on that particular occasion. So let's see if Tamatha's got the dance moves.
Tamatha Paul. Madam Chair, thank you for letting me take a call. I'll try to keep it to the main amendment paper 191 with my questions. The first question that I have is around the evidential basis for this change. So there's been statements made by the Minister that people are holding patches up in their windows and intimidating people, but what is the actual evidence of that? It's not something I myself have observed or seen happening, so could you provide, and I would hope that when we're amending a piece of...
And just for those who do know, that Tamatha grew up in Tokoroa.
Legislation and making something illegal, that we would actually have a strong evidential basis or some actual precedence of this happening, but it's not something that I have seen or heard a lot about. So what is the evidential basis behind this particular amendment? The second question I have also relates to police discretion, and mostly around the fact that how is a police officer supposed to know if someone is in a vehicle or in a car that what they're wearing is actually gang insignia? So obviously a patch is obvious. We know what to look for in a patch, but there are other gang insignias that fall into this legislation that could be on a t-shirt, could be on a hoodie, but the problem with that is it's harder to know if something is a gang insignia if it is in a car. So the police officer has to make that call and have a presumption that somebody is wearing gang insignia within a car. But we've discussed this before. Gang insignia can be hard to identify because, that includes, say, a fist, right? Black Power wear fists. But someone could have a hoodie or a t-shirt with a fist on it, completely unrelated or unaffiliated to a gang. So, for example, the Black Lives Matter movement uses a fist. If somebody's used, or workers' rights or Air 2 unions all use a fist. If someone's sitting in their car and there's a fist on their t-shirt, how is a police officer supposed to determine whether that person is wearing gang insignia or whether they're wearing an icon or an emblem completely unaffiliated? Another example is sports teams and, say, the use of a bulldog, which we know the mongrel mob use that as their symbol, but also sports teams use it too. So if they see a brown person in a car who's wearing a Canterbury Bulldogs t-shirt or jersey, how are they to know that that person is actually wearing gang insignia and isn't just wearing a sports shirt? And are their rights going to privacy and to not be subject to unwarranted or baseless searches be undermined by the fact that that police officer doesn't even know exactly what they're looking for? So how is that discretion supposed to be applied? And how do we know that this won't just lead to further discrimination against a group of people who might just be going about their day and wearing a regular t-shirt that has absolutely nothing to do with gang insignia? And is this just wasting the police officer's time? Because they might see somebody with a symbol on, maybe they're Māori, and pull them up and assume that they're a gang member because of a symbol that they have on and because they've made the assumption that that is gang insignia. So those are my questions. Would love an answer.
And I definitely can sit there and relate to what Tamatha's been talking about. I remember when I was in Levin when I first moved there, if I was a restricted licence, I would have lost my driver's license 3 times over with the number of times I was stopped in demerits, but because I had a full license, it was a waste of the police officer's time. So I definitely do know what that's like to be pulled over on bad assumptions, such as a fully licensed driver is soon to be unrestricted with 3 passengers in the car. That would result in an immediate loss of license on the spot.
The Honourable Minister.
Just in response to that, the purpose of this amendment in relation to extending it to cars and vehicles generally is to cover all our bases. And the concern that police raised was that the purpose of this is to free the public from the fear and intimidation of gangs in public places. And in the absence of this amendment, there was the risk that some would see the opportunity to do that from within a car. And so that's what we're closing off through this amendment. In terms of the police's ability to decide whether insignia has been displayed in a way that is intimidating, we've got every confidence in the ability of the police to use their discretion in a way that people will understand. I think the purpose of this amendment is clear, and I'm happy to explain anything else.
Do any of the ministers actually answer questions?
No. So I'm on Wikipedia at the moment, just looking up logos that are bulldogs, and there are over 250 different entries.
Do you want to share a screen of that? It's in the ballot, or are you?
No, I'm on my phone for it, I'm afraid.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, they include things like the United States Air Force Academy Cadet Squadron 13 are called the Bulldogs. There's Bulldog Films, Churchill Insurance, Mug Root Beer, the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, the New York City Fire Department. Yeah, a million schools all over the world. Then there's also, all the way back up to the top. My God, it's such a long list. Scroll. There's the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs in Australia, the Kapalaba Bulldogs, Central District Football Club, the South Fremantle Football Club, and the Western Bulldogs in AFL. Canada has half a dozen. The United Kingdom has half a dozen. The United States has so many. Like, they're everywhere. Bulldogs are everywhere, and they're really closely tied in as well to the iconography of the British during World War II. And so to just say, well, the police have the discretion. Do you think the police are going to have a list that says this is this iteration of a bulldog logo? Or are they going to sit there and go, it's just going to be easier to arrest you because you're wearing a bulldog, and bulldogs equal mongrel mob equals gang equals bad?
And actually, here's a great one is, are they going to have the ability to, say, look up this list on their phone in a place where there's no cell phone coverage to sit there and do it? Or do they err on the side of caution and arrest them because, there's no cell phone coverage between Pongaroa and Masterton? As a good example is somewhere that, there, or in the backwaters of Levin, up the back of the Ohau River. What happens in that situation when you got no cell phone coverage? How are you meant to look it up to make a judgment call? Do you err on the side of the caution and not arrest them? Or do you arrest them and then have to release them and possibly drive them back out to the What-Wats to pick up their car?
Sounds like a valuable use of police time.
Just picking up this point around discretion, I think that was a point that was raised by a couple of MPs. I think that's a point. Ginny certainly raised it. Tam raised it as well, and I think that's a point that really probably needs a little bit more discussion around it. Our police commissioner made some comments a little while ago about structural bias within the police. And about how that was something that he had put a lot of research into, and there was some reporting coming out about how there was a structural bias within the police that certainly was biased against Māori, particularly Māori Pacific as well. But I think if you're looking at a police officer making a judgment call about whether to enter someone's property or whether to arrest someone, because in order for police to have the right to go into someone's property, someone needs to be arrested. I think it's probably 3 times, isn't it? I think that's the requirement. There is a structural bias within the police, so I think this provision will impact Māori and Pacific more than any other group within society. So I think we need to understand that and understand that will be the impact on our society as a result of this type of change, which ultimately is not good. And the next step is the ability of police to go into people's homes. And I think that's really not good. and that's where you saw those comments coming through around lack of trust in the police, and I think that's something that we should ultimately be really concerned about.
I can actually tell you something this morning of a discretion situation. So when I was doing the paper run this morning, I would have been doing the Island Bay one driving down Mercy Street. So I was driving down the side of the road. I went to the right-hand side of the road, threw the paper out the window. Directly opposite at the intersection there was a police car, no lights, no nothing. I said, then pull over back. The police car creeps over, turns on their spotlight, about to pull me over. I pull over, I get out, and I grab a set of papers. They immediately turned around and drove off. A sign of discretion. Because they went, oh, the guy's delivering papers. We don't need to bother him. But that is showing, on this occasion, something they went to check out, they got a bit more information by me pulling over outside a dairy, because delivered to one house in Mercy Street, then the dairy, and they immediately picked up straight away exactly what I was doing. And I'm new to that paper in the area, so the cops probably aren't used to seeing my vehicle matched with papers getting thrown out the window yet. Whereas at Miramar, I've been doing that since 2019, about 5 years.